Have you ever told yourself something was over, but still felt like you were standing halfway inside it? Not holding on loudly, not chasing, not reaching out, but also not fully stepping away. The ending existed in words, but not yet in the body. Part of you kept listening for movement where silence had already settled. Not because you expected anything to change, but because finality felt heavier than uncertainty. Some endings do not hurt because they are sudden. They hurt because they remain unfinished inside you. This is what happens when the ending is allowed to be real. Not forced, not rushed, just finally accepted. Most people think endings are defined by decisions, conversations, or time passing. But emotional endings are defined by permission. Permission to stop monitoring, permission to stop interpreting, permission to stop leaving space for a return that may never come. When an ending becomes final internally, something subtle begins to reorganize. Not dramatically, not all at once. Quiet shifts start to occur in how attention moves, how memory behaves, and how emotional energy settles. Here are 10 things that change when the ending is finally allowed to be final. 1. Your mind stops revisiting the last version of them. When an ending is not final, the mind keeps replaying the last known version of someone. Not the whole person, just the final snapshot that still feels unfinished. You remember how they spoke near the end? How they looked? How close it almost felt? Once finality is accepted, that frozen image begins to loosen. Your mind no longer needs to hold them in a preserved state. They start to move into the past as a whole person, not a paused moment. The replaying slows without effort. Not because you forced yourself to stop thinking, but because the mind no longer needs resolution. What was incomplete internally becomes closed, and attention naturally shifts forward. 2. Emotional energy returns to neutral instead of anticipation. Unfinished endings create anticipation without hope, a constant low-level readiness for something to happen, even when logic knows it will not. Once the ending becomes final, that readiness dissolves. Emotional energy no longer waits. It rests. You may not feel happiness yet, but the tension of anticipation releases. There is less scanning, less bracing, less internal checking. Your nervous system stops preparing for messages, explanations, or outcomes. Neutral becomes possible again. Not empty, just calm. This is often the first quiet relief people notice, even before they recognize it as letting go. 3. You stop measuring time since the last contact. When something feels unresolved, time becomes a metric. Days, weeks, months are silently counted. Not intentionally, but automatically. Finality removes the need for this tracking. Time stops being measured against the ending. The last interaction loses its position as a reference point. You no longer think in terms of before and after them. Time returns to its normal flow, unmarked and unscored. Moments stop being evaluated by how far they are from what ended. This shift happens gradually, but once it settles, time feels lighter and less emotionally loaded. 4. Your body stops reacting to small reminders. Unfinished endings live in the body. A name, a place, a similar voice can trigger a physical response before thought catches up. When finality is accepted, the body recalibrates. Those reactions soften, not instantly, but noticeably. The chest does not tighten as sharply, your stomach does not drop as deeply. Your body no longer prepares for loss that has already occurred. This does not mean indifference, it means safety. The nervous system recognizes that there's nothing left to wait for or protect against. 5. You no longer interpret silence as information. When an ending is not final, silence feels active. It seems meaningful, intentional, or temporary. Once the ending becomes final, silence becomes neutral. It stops carrying messages. You no longer search it for signs or explanations. There is no hidden meaning to uncover. Silence simply exists. This shift removes a large amount of mental effort. Your attention no longer reaches outward for clarity. Clarity has already been accepted. What remains is quiet, not confusion, and that difference changes how you think entirely. 6. Your identity separates from the outcome. Unfinished endings tie identity to unresolved questions. Who you were to them, what you meant, why it ended. Finality allows your identity to detach from those unanswered narratives. You stop defining yourself by the ending, not because you gain new answers, but because you no longer need them. Your sense of self becomes independent again. You exist without needing to be understood by someone who is no longer present. This separation is subtle but stabilizing. You feel more solid, less reactive, and less shaped by something that is already complete. 7. Memory becomes less selective and more honest. When endings are unfinished, memory highlights only what supports attachment. Moments of closeness, hope, or potential are replayed more than the full reality. Finality allows memory to rebalance. You begin remembering the entire dynamic, not just the meaningful parts. The gaps, the misalignments, the emotional cost become clearer, not with bitterness, but with accuracy. This honesty reduces longing. You are no longer attached to a curated version of the past. Memory becomes information, not a pullback into something unresolved. 8. You stop imagining future versions of the same situation. Unresolved endings keep the imagination active. Alternate outcomes, future conversations, different timing. Once finality is accepted, imagination disengages from that storyline. There is no sequel being written internally. The future opens in other directions instead. Mental energy stops looping back into what could have been. You may not yet imagine something new, but you stop rewriting the old. This creates mental space, not excitement, just availability. The mind rests when it no longer has to maintain parallel realities. 9. Emotional closure happens without a moment. Many people wait for a feeling to mark closure, a release, a realization, a final emotion. Finality does not arrive that way. It settles gradually, without ceremony. One day you notice you did not think about it. Another day you realize something no longer hurts the same. Closure happens in absence, not intensity. It is the quiet accumulation of non-reaction. This is why it often goes unnoticed until it is already present. Finality is recognized in hindsight, not at the moment it arrives. 10. Your attention returns fully to the present. Unfinished endings split attention. Part of you stays behind, monitoring what is no longer happening. Finality brings attention back. Fully, your presence deepens without effort. You notice conversations more clearly. Moments feel less distracted. Your inner world becomes quieter, not because life is perfect, but because nothing is pulling you backward. This return to the present is not dramatic. It is grounding. It marks the true completion of the ending. Allowing an ending to be final is not about forcing yourself to move on. It is about stopping the internal negotiation with what is already concluded. Finality does not erase meaning. It simply removes the need to keep holding space for something that no longer exists. When the ending becomes real internally, energy settles, memory balances, and attention returns. Nothing new has to be created yet. Nothing has to be fixed. What changes is the quiet permission to stop waiting. And in that stillness, something stabilizes. Not relief, not closure as an event, just a grounded sense that the ending has finished ending. Thank you for listening with attention. This space is here whenever clarity is needed. Until then.